Welcome to the Dream Home Doorway podcast, where we explore everything you need to know about building your dream home. I'm your host, Rachel Starrett, and today we have a special episode dedicated to one of the most crucial aspects of home building, finding and developing the perfect piece of land. Joining us today are two experts from our team. First, we have Lisa Stafford, a dream home consultant from our Rayford division, who will guide us through the process of finding the right land, what to look for, financing options, and even some potential red flags. Then we'll speak with Jeff Jones, one of our regional builder managers, who will share his insights on the land development process, why these costs are not included in the home's base price, regional cost variations, and the timeline for development. Whether you're just starting your journey or you're deep into planning, today's episode will help equip you with valuable knowledge to make informed decisions. So let's get started. Lisa, I would love if you could introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your role as a dream home consultant.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate you letting me join today. I am Lisa Stafford. I'm a dream home consultant in our Rayford office. And on a regular day, what I do is greet new prospective clients who come in and I share with them information about what we do at Red Door Homes. I'm their guide. I assist with design changes. I assist them with helping to make color selections one day. And before we get to that point, I'm also here to answer all of their questions. So I'm their link to everybody else on the team.
Perfect. So Lisa's probably one of the first people that you would meet in person, and she would be working with you or one of our other dream home consultants really right up until you start building the home. And Lisa, how long have you been with Red Door Homes?
I've been here since 2011. It was September of 2011 when I joined the team. And we've grown immensely since then and had a ton more people here as part of our group, a little family here at Red Door Homes.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot in that time, I'm sure. So we're going to dive right into the question. So, what are the first steps someone should take when they're looking for land to build their home?
So, really, when they connect with us, the first step that someone needs to make is to schedule an appointment so that we have a set time set aside when we can just focus on them and answering all of their questions to get started. So, if they're coming to see me for the first time to talk about land, I can give them some suggestions. And here's what they are: we have a number of websites that we might recommend that they would reach out to. But in certain areas, we also have trusted realtors that we might refer them to so that they have somebody guiding them at that part of looking for land. And if they're looking on their own, let's say, for example, they have friends or family members or church members who say, hey, we've got this piece of land, and they're looking at it on their own, then something that I think you're asking in this question, what should they be specifically looking for? Something that they should look for is the land reasonably flat? Is it reasonably clear or does it need a great deal of clearing? And how far is it off of a main road? So these three things, those three simple items are will be very telling for me when I'm assisting them and trying to figure out a budget for their land development later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people get stuck on this part of, oh, well, I don't own land, so I probably can't build with Red Door Homes. And the vast majority of people that actually meet with us initially don't own land. They're really curious about the process. Is this something that could be possible for me? And I really encourage you, if you're listening and you don't have land, that is an obstacle that we can certainly help you overcome. And we help the majority of our homeowners overcome that. If you've already got land, that's great. And we will talk about that land development piece. But don't let that stop you from moving forward. And we're here to help for sure. Lisa, what role does Red Door Homes play in assisting customers with their land search?
So, like I mentioned, there are a number of websites that we're familiar with that are great starting places for people to find what's available. But we also have tools here in the office that we can share, things that sometimes our customers have looked at before and often not. We have access to the GIS that we can show them for their local area. to be able to pull up land and get some more details about it. We have a computer program that we use called Can I Build that allows us to see what type of contours may be present on the land that they're considering. And we have a number of, like I mentioned before, realtor referrals that we can help assist with. So, quite a few things just in the first appointment that we can put them on the right path to finding some land.
Yeah, and believe it or not, word of mouth, like Lisa mentioned, like at your church, family, or friends, make sure you're telling people, hey, I'm looking for land. Do you know anyone? You'd be surprised at how many people find land that way. Or if there's a large piece of property that you drive by that you're like, hey, I wonder if they would be willing to sell me a portion of that land. That definitely happens too. So we can help you think outside the box and give you some additional resources that maybe you haven't thought of, how to find contact information for landowners and things like that. So there's lots of unique ways that we can certainly help you for sure. I think you mentioned a few of them, Lisa, already, but what are the top factors to consider when evaluating a piece of land for building a home, and why are they important to consider early on?
Okay. Some of these, sometimes people think that if a property has trees on it, that's a no, that's a no. But we can easily help them find a way to get the trees taken off. We will provide, assistance with that. We'll get them pricing for it. It's not going to be a great deal more expensive if it has trees on it, if that is the location that is best for them. So, that's, one of the things to consider. But I would say, is it flat? And, we used to have a great little visual here that said, okay, if you put a basketball on the property, is it going to roll one way or the other? If it will, then it's not flat. And, it's something that many times just looking at it, it's hard to tell. But that's why our builder will go to the land and they'll use actual tools that will tell them if it's a difference of a few inches or a few feet within the area that we'll be building their home. So the fact that we have tools and we have a builder that will assist by making a land evaluation or going to do a preliminary land evaluation, that's one of the really great things that we do for our clients here. But back to your question, what else can I see? Is it wet? When they walk out there, do their feet sink down into the soil? If they had a little stick and poked it down into the ground, is it gonna go easily into the soil or is it kind of hard? I mean, these are things that I've learned from our builders that they look at when they're viewing the land as well. So is it flat? Is it clear? And is it dry? Those are pretty simple.
Yeah. And, if the piece of property that you're considering does not check those boxes, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't build on it or that you can't build on it. But where we will come into play is making sure that your budget allows to build on a piece of property that might take a little bit more land development. So it's all kind of one piece, of the puzzle that we will help you put together. But we certainly have built on, pieces of land that are extremely not flat or are wet. So there definitely are strategies to overcome those obstacles. But when you're looking at building within a budget, if you're looking to keep your costs as low as possible on the land side, the things that Lisa are mentioning are really important. Making sure that the land is as flat as possible. If it has access to public water and public sewer, minimal clearing, those are all things that will keep your land development costs we'll talk about down. But as well, the asking price of that land might be a little bit higher. So if you are looking for land and you see $10,000 for this acre and you're like, wow, that's a great deal, we would want to investigate that. And we always recommend making sure you have somebody with knowledge go out and evaluate that property before you purchase it. Lisa, maybe you can talk about some experience that you've had that your customers have bought land, hadn't worked with a builder yet, and then, come to find out that it's a little bit more challenging than they anticipated.
And you're right, Rachel. We can help them put together a budget that will allow us to build on almost every property. But as a builder, we would really like for our customers to be able to build their dream home with all of the fancy things in it that they're imagining and not having to remove something in order to cover the cost of a special foundation, for example. So I keep going back to slope or, sloping land. There are many people who come to us who do have land already and we need to make a home work on that. We can certainly do it. But specifically to your question of someone who's had some difficulty, have one right now. We've just moved and um, they have, as of today, worked out, gone to the attorney and gotten a different parcel of land because their first parcel did not work for them to build on. However, through their network of people that they knew in the area, kind of talking through it, they did find another location, same neighborhood, just in a different site. And it's actually going to work out better for them. So I know that does happen from time to time. Other things that I've seen that have come up, the hardest is when someone has their heart set on a property and it does not hurt for a septic system. And that is something that is completely out of our control. We have to go through whatever municipality it is or county that it is, and their environmental health department will do testing for the land. If a septic system is required, we then have to follow whatever the guidelines are for where they say it has and how it has to be built. So, those things are really important. If you're looking at land, it may be that someone selling the land has already had that test done, but it's only good for 5 years. So these are just other things that when they come to us as a professional, we can give them guidelines of what questions to ask when they go back to the person who's selling them that property.
Hmm. And another great reason, if you're even far out from deciding to build with us, coming in and getting some initial information and knowledge about what to look for, so that if you do happen to come across a piece of property, you're armed with that information so that you can make an informed decision and move forward. So there really is no, waiting until you're ready. There's no bad time to really learn and arm yourself with some good information that'll help you when you are ready to proceed. Lisa, I'd love to talk about financing land. We get a lot of questions for people who don't own it, how that works. Can you explain the options available for financing land purchases?
So, over the years that I've been here, there have only been a couple of ways that people could finance land without the home that I know of. There was a program that one bank had a few years ago. I assume they're still doing it, but I haven't had anybody do it, who try to take advantage of it recently. But basically, there was a bank that would allow you to use your construction loan to purchase the land, but you had to build on it within 3 years. So that gave you a little bit of time, but that's only one. Um, Anyone else who just wanted to finance land without having that be part of the combined package with their home would need to do a personal loan in the past, which can be rather expensive and at a higher interest rate. So, also not spread out over a long period of time. So that can be a little more expensive. However, many of our customers over the years have combined their purchase of the land, their purchase of the home, and anything the land needed into one purchase price through a construction to perm loan with one of our suggested lenders.
For sure.
And then
So for those of you listening, what that means is, as we talk about the clearing and if you need a septic system and all of those, additions to the actual home itself, as Lisa's mentioning, you can buy the land development, any changes that you're making are all rolled into that loan, making your mortgage payment. And so before you decide to move forward, even before you decide to purchase a property, we can estimate for you, what that will look like as a monthly mortgage payment. So again, you have all of the information that you need to make an informed decision. So a construction to permanent loan is the type of loan that you need to do that. You can use a VA loan, USDA, FHA conventional. So lots of options. And again, we're here to kind of help you facilitate that step as well. Lisa, what should potential buyers know about securing loans or other financing for land? So any kind of tips or anything that you think that people should be aware of?
biggest one is it's going to take a little bit of time because, in North Carolina now, they're going to give you time for due diligence when you make a purchase. Well, if you're purchasing a home that's already standing there, you get a number of tests done to the home, and those are pretty self explanatory, can be done in a couple of weeks. However, when you are testing land to make sure that it's going to work for the home that you want to place on it. For example, let's say individual wants a 4-bedroom home. Well, if that land requires a septic system, then we have to go through, or the individual will have to go through and get the testing done for the land first to make sure that it will allow a 4-bedroom home to be placed on it with the system that it needs. That might take a few weeks, like, 3 to 4 weeks. And then we know also we're building their blueprints for the home that they've designed. Rarely does someone come to meet me and not have any ideas of changes for their home. So in every single situation, we do a brand new blueprint for the home that the individual is buying, and with all of the details in it that they want to include. I mean, even if it's something just so simple as we're changing appliances or we're doing a special shower in the bathroom. Well, we have to show all that detail on our blueprint. So we have to have it drawn up specifically. And it's not just one page. There are a lot of pages that come into a set of blueprints. So they all have to be, done and provided back for us, that we then will have that customer come in, review the plans, and make sure that we don't see something else that they would like to add to it. Usually we'll have a meeting called a plan review meeting where we'll review every single page of their blueprints and we'll add any additional details to it. So we take a little red pen, add the details to it, then we'll have that set of blueprints made into the next set of plans, the PERM plan. That's the one we'll send to the bank. So imagine by now, quite a bit of time has passed. That's probably 30 days. So the biggest difference that I see between the time needed to go buy a house that's out there, maybe 30 days, a lender could have their loan closed. But when you're purchasing land and the land needs to meet specifications first, and then you're picking a home and we're going to review the blueprints, and then the bank is going to put both of these pieces together so that they can get the appraisal done, that's going to take a little more time. So I'd say, again, we want to check in with the lender, make sure that we're giving the lender enough time and that we're not being unrealistic with the amount of time that's needed. So usually a couple of months is enough, but definitely more than if they were just buying a home that's on the market.
For sure. So, if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, oh, maybe we'd like to get started in a year, even two, if you're looking for land, definitely a good time to really start. Meet with us, get the information that we're talking about, really get on that land search because you don't really know when the perfect property might come available. And so, again, you want to be ready for that. So, it surprises a lot of people, I think, how early that they should really kind of start this journey. Last question.
Add something to that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to jump in, but I would say, person that comes to see me now and says, I'm not going to be ready to get started until January. I really want them to start talking to their lender now. I want them to make sure that there's not something crazy. This world is really a different world than what it used to be. And people are somehow involved in your finances sometimes than you didn't even know. So it's a good idea to have a lender pull your credit, make sure there's not something unusual in there that you didn't even know. It could be a mistake, but you know what? Sometimes mistakes take a few months to resolve. So I would say a person who's looking to get started in January, they really should be talking to a lender now. Let's see, what the lender says. If they're ready to go before then, there's no penalty for waiting. But at the same time, at least they know that everything is ready.
For sure. And, for reference, that's about 5 to 6 months from now, from when we're recording this. So that hopefully gives you a frame of reference. Last question, Lisa, we talked a little bit about some, but what are some common red flags to look out for when buying land, and how can home buyers avoid potential pitfalls or issues?
Well, I will tell a little story. I know I mentioned earlier about a customer that I had who was looking at land. She really wanted acreage. And when they came upon acreage, she came back and was telling me, it looks amazing. It's flat and it's nice and clear and everything looks wonderful. And it's been a farm, ag field. So she thought, grew plants out here. It's got to be great land. The neighbor came over and said, not sure why they're selling this. It won't perk. And, My customer thought, well, that neighbor just didn't want new neighbors. They were just telling us that. Well, I would say this is a red flag. If somebody else in the neighborhood happens to step over and mention that they know there have been issues in the past, there may be issues right now as well. So that's one that I would definitely heed. Do your own investigation, of course. If you're absolutely in love with this land, keep checking into it. But it might cost you a little bit of money to find out that it either does or doesn't perk for the septic system that you might need. Now, sometimes that neighbor might step next door and says, yeah, I don't know why they're trying to sell that. It wouldn't perk. But what you might know as the buyer is they just ran sewer by here. We don't need it to perk. We can tie into another option. So may be still available, may still work out just great for you, but know that there are going to be some things that you have to look into.
For sure.
And that would be one.
And so as Lisa's talking about a perk test, that's a test that's really testing the soil to make sure it's suitable for a septic system. So not all properties will need it. If you have access to public sewer, then you can avoid that. But, out there, especially today, a lot of properties that you'll find, especially in rural areas, will require a septic system. And so that's when that perk test is going to be required. So if you're looking at land on like Zillow and it says septic system, that means that you'll need that perk test. If it says public sewer, then you don't. So that's definitely good information to know. And sometimes you need a non-traditional septic system if the land doesn't perk. That can be very expensive, but for some people who, again, already own the land or love it, they can fit that in their budget sometimes. So again, we are here to kind of overcome whatever obstacles come your way. I actually personally purchased a piece of property, almost purchased a piece of property years back before I built my home with Red Door and loved it. It was waterfront. There was homes all around it. It was the last lot available. It was my dream. And so we were under contract and Red Door came and did my preliminary land evaluation and said, hey, this is actually in a floodway. And I thought, well, what the heck is that? There shouldn't be any problem. There's houses all around here. But, turns out I would need to have a study from the Army of Engineers disprove the floodway, which would have been time consuming and expensive. And so luckily, before the due diligence was over, I was able to exit out of that contract. But just a personal example of why it's really important to have somebody kind of on your team. Okay, perfect, Lisa. We are going to shift gears now that we've talked about finding that land. We're going to talk a little bit about what happens when you have it and the land development side of things. So, Jeff, if you could introduce yourself and explain your role as one of our regional builder managers.
Yes, ma'am. Be glad to. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So as a regional builder manager, again, my name is Jeff Jones, and I've been with Red Door 9 years. So as a regional builder manager, my role is to manage our builders or superintendents. We call them builders, but your on-site supervisor for each customer. So I'm helping manage those guys with trades, evaluating their sites, doing, checking out things behind the guys, making sure everything's going smoothly.
So your quality control, more or less.
And quality control, yes, ma'am, on inside and out. So
perfect. Okay, so land development, there's, a lot of parts and pieces to it. Some of the main ones we've talked about, like clearing, grading, building permits, we haven't really talked a whole lot about yet, but what does land development, what does it involve from start to finish? Give us a little idea of what happens.
Yep. So land development for each lot is going to be a little bit different. So some lots may have a lot of clearing, heavy clearing. Some lots, may just need grass scraped off to build the house, construction entrance, stone, anything to help us access the lot properly to get on site to start the construction of the home.
Perfect. And you may hear land development also referred to as allowances. So if you do hear the term allowances, either on one of our videos in our office, it's really the same thing. So land development and allowances are really the same. The allowances are the funds that we put into your budget to cover the land development. So they're kind of one in the same. Jeff, why is land development not typically included in the base cost of one of our homes?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, each lot has their own challenges, opportunities. Clearing, obviously, if a land is previously cleared, that saves the customer a ton of money. So, not being included is because each piece of land brings its own opportunities to each customer. So, those prices can change dramatically from one lot to the next.
Right. And so if we were to include that in the cost of our prices, we would no longer be known as the affordable home builder of choice in the Carolinas because our prices would have to be high to accommodate for those pieces of land that really need a lot more development than others. And, if you're shopping out there, really any builder that does what we do, they're not including the land development cost, whether or not you're looking for a mobile home or you're looking at any other type of home that's going on your land, you still will need development in order to be able to build on it. So that really doesn't change, regardless of what you're looking to put on your land, because obviously you've got different options out there for sure.
That's right.
Okay, Jeff, can you talk a little bit about our free land evaluation that we offer and what information it provides future homeowners?
Yes, ma'am. Be glad to. The land evaluation, we call it a pre-land evaluation, but it is free to the customer. It is an opportunity for us to look at the land prior to the customer actually signing a contract with us. So we go to the site, we evaluate it for those things that we spoke about earlier: clearing, grading, does it need a culvert pipe, where's the power coming from, septic, water, tons of information that we bring back to the customer so they are aware of potential, like you said before, pitfalls, or if the land is wet, if there's water standing on it. Just as a professional builder, we're evaluating the site to inform the customer of cost that may be associated with the site.
Okay. And can you explain why land development costs vary by area or by region or even by county sometimes?
Yes, ma'am, it does. So obviously, trades contractors in different areas obviously charge a little bit different. So that's one of the challenges with different costs. And again, county requirements. Some counties, may require a certain size culvert pipe in the ditch versus another county for DOT purposes. So there's lots of things that an area can provide for cost for the land development. So it changes, per area, per county, like you said before. So there's a lot of things involved that we look at. We take a lot of time at those pre-lot evaluations and try to bring the customer the best information that we can get from being on site.
Perfect. And what sets Red Door Homes apart when it comes to land development?
In my opinion, what sets Red Door Home apart is the time and the professionalism that we take looking at the property, looking at properties around the area, digging in, finding out the county, what the tap fees may be. And also, I feel like the dollar for dollar, I guess, monetary um, that we charge the customer. We don't upcharge any of those items that's outside the home, the clearing, the grading, the septic, the well. It's dollar for dollar with our trades. So a lot of times, more times than not, a customer actually gets money back at the end of the job. So how many people do you know that have built a home that get money back at the end? Not all of our customers get funds back, but things happen on the job sites that are unforeseen. But I think it's just the communication and how we handle the allowances, how we track them throughout the course of construction that really sets us apart.
And Lisa, maybe you can add to that a little bit about, our competition or other options out there. I know for us, land development is a little bit different than what some others out there are doing today.
It's such a surprise to people when they come to us and find out that we are doing what Jeff just described, that we are only going to charge them the invoice price. And because we're doing this, 52 weeks a year, we have people who work for us specifically, in some cases, just us doing these things. So, of course, they give us a much better price than what that individual may get from somebody coming to do this one thing one time for them. And I think that that is a great misconception that people sometimes have, thinking, well, if I get it done myself, it'll be done, for less. And that's not the case. I'd like for Jeff to speak about that. I know that sometimes we've had a situation where someone had land cleared and they actually messed up something on their land, and it then cost them more money to get that fixed.
Yeah, they sure did, Lisa. It's not funny now, but it was a situation where they thought they could save money by hiring a logger to come in and log the trees off of the property, which in turn had us going in there and digging up the stumps, which was more time consuming than actually just pushing the trees over. And it actually disturbed more of the topsoil or the good, usable dirt for septic. And they actually had to get a whole different septic system. So it actually cost them tenfold what it cost them to hire the guy to log it. So there's a lot of, information that a customer, everybody's got a buddy that does something. Don't get me wrong. I've got tons of friends that do lots of things, but if they don't do it every day, and if they don't know the correct way to do it, sometimes it can cost a customer more money in the end.
Yeah, and even me just listening, I'm like, wow, that logging idea, that sounds pretty logical. Like, okay, right?
Yep.
But, that's again why it's important just to really make sure that you have someone crossing your T's and dotting your I's for you. The other thing to think about too is there are a lot of options out there, or, other companies that are requiring you to do the land development yourself. And they may be handing you over a list of people to contact. But, if this is not something that you do every day, it's not something that you probably want to do or have time to do yourself. And we are managing that for you, as Lisa and Jeff mentioned, at no additional cost. It will cost you the exact same, but you have someone actually taking care of it for you the right way the first time. So definitely something to consider for sure. Jeff, how long does land development typically take?
That's a great question, Rachel. And it varies. It varies. Depending on the number one obvious reason is clearing. If it's heavily wooded, obviously it's going to take longer to do land development on a heavy wooded area. But I would say on average, once the customer's construction loan closes and we get on site with equipment, depending on the size of the lot and the acreage that we're going to disturb or clear, I feel like a week to 2 weeks on site, weather related things of that nature, but we can get it all done in a timely manner, from construction entrance to clearing to grading, um, to any of the infrastructure allowance items, prior to start of construction. I feel like we're pretty good at that, getting on site in a timely manner and getting it done.
Okay, great. Any, I guess, common delays or challenges that could affect that timeline?
Yeah, weather, obviously, when you're working in the elements, weather is a big factor. That's probably the biggest factor. Also, in certain municipalities around different counties, they may want an arborist to go on site to mark trees that may not want to clear, or certain areas that may have clearing restrictions or things of that nature. So we try to look for that prior to getting on site. That may be a factor. Um, but I would say weather is probably the biggest delay that we may face.
Mhm. That's a good point too. When I was building, I it was the town is a bird sanctuary, and so there
Yep.
were some additional requirements that we had to fulfill before we could clear the land and the type of trees that were there and making sure that there was no, I can't remember the particular tree, but a woodpecker,
That's right.
in the
Yep.
tree. Just wild things that, you wouldn't necessarily think of every day. Okay, final question for each of you. We'll start with Lisa. What advice would you give to someone looking to build their own home in regards to finding and developing that land?
I'd say, first of all, try not to listen to all of the noise that come from friends and family and coworkers about that. Unless they've done it, they really don't know. And unless they've done it with us, they don't know that it can be simplified. I feel like we really do speak about that. We know how to make this simple for the buyer. And like you said, most of the people that we're building for, they have to get financing, they have jobs. So we know that on the daily, that's their full time thing, is doing the job that they need to do. And that puts us in charge of them and taking care and doing everything on their behalf that we can to make this simpler for them. And that's where I'll come back to our land development that our builders take care of. Gosh, they're so lucky. Our buyers are so lucky to have someone working so hard in on their behalf to make sure that it's done in a timely manner and it's done well and with cost in mind. We're not just going to spend the most money to do this faster. That's not our goal. Every one of our builders will do anything that they can to make sure that we are very conscious of the money that's being spent to get their land ready. And they communicate that with the customer. So they're going to have an opportunity to speak with them. And if they do happen to have a buddy with a dump truck, by all means, we're going to consider, what that buddy can do to help out to save money in their project. So what can they do? Just keep their eyes open, and then lean on us. We are a trusted guide for them. I'm here to answer their questions, and I don't know all the answers myself, but I have a great team of people that I can go to and find out for them and be able to, during my workday, get back to them and get them answers so that they don't have to wait, to hear from when their builder is available because he's out building during the day. So lean on us.
I love that. Okay, Jeff, how about you? Any advice for someone looking for land and needing to develop it?
Well, I think the number one thing, my advice is to, pick up the phone, give Red Door a call, schedule an appointment. Let's discuss it. Let's look at your options. I think we do a great job of upfront communication. Lisa does a wonderful job of communicating with the customer about any issues that we may find on site. But as far as the land itself, just look for your red flags, do your research. Um, if it's the last lot in a subdivision that's 30 years old, there's a reason that lot is probably left there. It's probably a drainage lot or something wrong that the builder didn't build on that lot. But here's another, just a piece of advice about land. They don't make any more of it. So, it's getting harder and harder to find good property. So, if you do find a piece of land, let's do the research on it. Let's figure out if it perks, if if it's buildable, things of that nature. So reach out to us, like Lisa said, lean on us. We're here to walk you through every aspect of construction, but the land development is very crucial. From start to finish. A quick example: we had a customer in Cumberland County that we went and looked at a piece of land, and it was very wet, and there was no telling how much money we would have spent on that lot preparing it to build on. And that money that he would have spent on that property, he would have never got it back um, if he was potentially sell the house. So we can build on any site, but again, the upfront money that it's going to cost, you may not recoup that money. If you ever decide to sell it. So, look for good land. It's harder to find, but just, lean on us, ask the right questions, let us help you, and we'll get you to the finish line.
I love that. And my tip for everyone from experience is call us or anyone before you buy it. Have somebody go out and take a look who's knowledgeable and who can really, make sure that they're helping you out, because we do see that quite often. I want to thank you, Lisa and Jeff, for sharing your experience with us today. Finding and developing land is a complex but essential part of building a custom home, and your insights have certainly made it easier to understand. For our listeners, we hope this episode has provided you with the clarity and confidence to take the next step in your home building journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dream Home Doorway podcast for more helpful tips, expert advice, and inspiring home building stories. I'm Rachel Starrett, and we'll catch you next time as we explore more about making your dream home a reality. Thanks for tuning in.